Good morning, Dan. How are you? There's a lot going on in the world today, and so let's kind of go over what is taking place today. Morning, Dave. And so let's just start with some of the economic news, in particular, what's happening with inflation. So it turns out that the CPI came out today, and it came in a lot hotter than expected, actually by 0.1%, which is a big deal. And inflation was up 2.6% in the past 12 months. So on a rolling 12-month basis, inflation is up 2.6%. Now this exceeds the target that the Federal Reserve has been calling for, which is basically the Federal Reserve has been calling on 2% target. So this is exceeding that number by 0.6 now. Now, this is kind of, hold on a second here. I'm not sure if I can show this screen here. Okay. So here's what I wanted to point out. And I don't know how well this shows up, folks. Maybe there's a way I can kind of expand my screen. But anyways, it's not the clearest thing. I'll have to try to figure out how to do this a little better. But if you notice in the inflation numbers that the government reported, they're showing that rent inflation was only like 2.6%. And I say rent, they're basically telling us that rent went up by 1.6%, 1.7% in the past 12 months, which I call bullshit on. Because if you look, now there's some sites out there, apartment guides, and then you hear everybody talking about how much rents are shooting up across the country, how there's a shortage of housing, that a lot of people are fleeing the city and they're going into the suburbs. And you can see on this graph, which is apartmentguide.com, this is a blog, you can see that the average rent in March of 2020 was $1,738. And then you fast forward to today, and it's $1,861. So 1861 divided by 1738, and you're at 7% inflation, folks. So think about that. Hold the control key and scroll the wheel. Let's take a look here. Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Okay, so there we go. So you can see right here, this is what I was keying on. You see the 1738 number, folks? So 1738, and now it's 1861. Folks, that is not a 1.6% increase. We know that we can do some basic math. I mean, the school system is failing us, but not that much that we can't do basic arithmetic. So for the government to say, you know what, rent's only up 1.6% across the country, we know they're bullshitting us. And this is a big problem because the Fed continues to print money. It continues to basically debase everybody's assets in this country. And we need to do something to stop this. So I'm not sure why there's no mechanisms in place to basically call out these, as they would say, these banksters. I've heard that phrase before, and I used to laugh about it when I would hear it. And I would hear this actually years ago. I heard it from one of my nephews, and he used to call bankers in the Fed just banksters. And they do act like banksters, and they do act like gangsters with the Chinese, and they're basically lying to us and figuring out ways to co-opt or take more of our money by the system, that's in place with manipulating the data or being overly aggressive with the data when we know that this isn't the case. The other thing you should look at, if you go look at that number, hold on a second. If you guys don't know where to pull this, all you have to do is if you go CPI report, and that's all you have to remember, CPI report, and you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's where this information is. And I highly recommend you go there when instead of seeing, I'm not even going to name who I'm saying you should go to. You should, if you really want to see what's going on, go to the raw material, folks, because the raw material is what the government's reporting, not what these politicians are reporting. And you can see right here at the BLS.gov, you can pull the release today. So you don't have to take my word for it. Go look at the videotape. You can see right here, 2.6%. So I'm going to expand this some more. Let me see here. And then I'll expand this. One of these days I'll get this stuff figured out, folks. Let me see. So if we go here, and we can see that 2.6% for all items. Okay, food inflation is 3.5%. I mean, do you guys really think inflation on food is only up 3.5% in the past year? Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Energy, they're only saying went up 13%, which, you know, once again, when I sit there and I think about this, they're basically telling us energy overall is up 13% year over year, right? That's the claim. That's what they're basically saying. And, you know, when you look at where energy was a year ago, you know, I'm a little confused, folks, because in about April of last year, April 23rd, so, you know, we're a few days away. We're about 10 days away. You know, the price of oil, are you ready for this? The price of oil was $20 a barrel. So I want you to look at this for yourself. So you don't have to. Once again, I think it's important that everybody just gets in the habit. If it's like, hey, Bobby, that sounds a little too crazy. I want to spot check you. I'm gonna do a fact check on Bobby. Go ahead. And what I would say is you should do the fact checking on me. You should do the fact checking on all these carnival barkers, on all these news programs, because a lot of them don't do any damn work. I think they just read. They're really good at reading note cards that get thrown in front of them. And actually, I'm gonna show you something that's kind of funny. Hold on a second. You guys will get a kick out of this because yes, I admit it, folks. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my video right here, and you know, you might see this happening in the not too distant future. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna just go back to my video here for a sec. Look at this. I got my own little teleprompter. I'm going to be like the little mainstream media monkeys. I'm just going to sit there. I'm going to read these little cards. I'll write something up and read it from my little teleprompter. Anyways, I haven't gotten it set up yet. Everything I do is you know, I just do off the top of my head after I've read everything. But let's go to oil. So you can see right here, this is the U.S. Oil Fund. Right, U.S. Oil Fund. This is a proxy, folks. It's not the exact price of oil, but you can see last year, April 22nd, so today's April 13th, it was at $20 a barrel. $20 a barrel, $20.08. What is it today? $40.90. So now you sit there and you're like, wait a second, Bobby. What kind of math are you pulling here? Gasoline only shows it's up 22.5%. But it's like, how is that possible, folks? How the hell are these people computing these numbers is what I want to know, when the price of oil has doubled from where it was a year ago, and they're only showing that it went up 22%. Now, any of us who keep track of what we spend at the pump, we know that this is horseshit. And we got to call this crap out when we see it. Okay, so now let's go to shelter. Here we go, shelter. Right here, 1.6%, 1.7%. So they're basically telling us there's been no increase overall in our housing. Hey, Jilly, stop. 1.7% inflation for shelter. That's another phrase for for housing. And I just showed you that chart that it's essentially 7% year over year for rent across the country. Okay, according to Apartment Guide. And I got to tell you, I trust Apartment Guide more than our government right now. I don't even know anything about Apartment Guide, but the fact that they take the time to come up with the data, and I think they try to just be honest versus our government and bureaucrats that have infiltrated. I think that we should be looking at more private sector data sources on all of this stuff, because these people have weird, perverse incentives to mislead us. So that's the shelter issue, okay? So now we have 1.7% on that. We just showed you 7%. You know, the oil prices up 100% year over year on the price of USO, yet energy's only up 22%. They're basically telling us that food's only up 1.6% overall. I'm sorry. This is all items less food and energy. Let's focus on food. Here we go. Food is 3.5%. Now, I don't know about you. I have a hard time believing our grocery bill only went up by 3.5% year over year. I don't think it went up so little because these are sneaky little guys and gals in these government agencies. The size of the packaging falls, and they do funky things where the price of what you just bought didn't go up, but the quantity that you bought did go down. So that inflation is definitely more than 3.5%. So, anyways, this is what's going on today, folks. With that inflation number, it came in 0.6, versus an estimate of 0.5. You can go to hold on a second here. When you want to just kind of see the quick headline numbers, you can see that the CPI came in there. The core CPI came in at 0.3. Once again, these morons like to just focus on this number because they want to exclude food and energy, and they say that's the core because food and energy is volatile. And you sit there and you're like, when was the last time you didn't eat? When was the last time the price you paid for your food and your energy, you went in there and said, you know what? I don't like this volatility. I'm going to pay you this. What do you guys say to that? And so this argument that it should be stripped out is the most lunatic, asinine argument that's been in place for as long as I can remember. Anyways, you can see that the federal budget for March came in at a negative 660. There we go, folks. There's that 66. They love their sixes. I mean, they couldn't have made it a nice 666. I'm not sure how they manufacture these numbers, but it does sure seem convenient that it comes out nicely at 6.6. And I can't help but think that maybe that's a way that they're signaling all is clear, boss. We've cooked. We've done the right cooking of the numbers to make them appear the way they should, and so forth. And so, anyways, so let's go back to that. Okay, so that was a lot to cover. Holy cow, that's been 12 minutes already. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. So basically, this is what's going on with the CPI today. It is. I think it's heating up, and it's much worse than they're trying to make it seem. And so, we have every right to be concerned with this loose monetary policy. Powell basically came out and said that he's probably not going to raise interest rates this year, which is really alarming given how much inflation there is everywhere. Everybody's seeing pressure on housing. People that I talk to, housing is off the charts. There's a shortage of homes as people are fleeing the cities, and the price of materials is going up across the board. So that's a huge problem. And this is what's taking place, folks, on the inflationary front. So now let's go to the border. I posted something earlier this morning, and this ties into economics, folks, because as we sit there and we talk about all this stuff that we're paying for and additional tax money and on how we're getting popped every which way by this stuff, there's two things I want to hit on. Benedict Berry, as I call him, who let in 25,000 people from Somalia. 25,000 Somalian Muslims were relocated to Minneapolis, and the deal is, folks, when that happened, when you change the composition of a city by 2 to 3%, you start to change the fabric of how the city behaves and reacts. So in this case, 5% of the city, so 1 out of 20 people were in a sense foreign. They were literally foreigners by the definition. They were a foreigner. They're from another land. They're from another nation. But they were even more foreign from the standpoint that they didn't share the values of the people of Minneapolis. These are folks that were being shelled and bombed, and in Somalia, and then they came here and they were basically allowed to come into one of what used to be one of the cleanest, most prosperous cities in the United States. It was about, I think, 500,000 people or something. And then, these folks from this other country that hate this country, they got here because of Barry, and they push a kid over the railing. It barely gets any press, just for no reason. Just throw some kid off a railing in what used to be one of the safest towns in America. I don't know if they were trying to start a race war back then, but it sure does feel like it, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden, they start burning down Minneapolis, and there was videos going around for a while. I did see them. I know that they took all that material down, but they gutted that city. They started burning it every which way, and they started this across the country. I don't think it's a coincidence, folks, that the same folks that came in from these war-torn places on Earth, they have something to do with it. I'm not sure who's funding all this crap, but we need to look into it, because they're literally declaring war on U.S. soil, and they're bringing them in under the guise of refugee status. These are not good people that have been brought in under these programs, and we need to call it out as it is. This is ridiculous. If you can't afford to get here on your own, don't come here. Get your ass together. Look, my parents immigrated to this country. My dad, he came here. He worked for like 2 years. I'm the last. I was the only one born in the U.S. My family immigrated here from Poland. But my dad worked for like 2-3 years, saved up enough money to be able to fly over the rest of the family, obviously, legally, not breaking the law. And then, sure enough, a little over, about a year later, I show up. I guess he missed my mom. So anyways, my point is, that was the way it was done. Now you got this horse shit where people are funding people that are living in squalor, have no skills, aren't willing to work, and they bring them in by the thousands all at once, and they relocate them to a city that used to be prosperous and safe, and they wreck it. And now all of a sudden, this city, now it used to be known for cleanliness and also being a safe place to live and everything else. And then what happens? They're known for ballot harvesting, so they've gone the way of Chicago. They're known for kids being violently thrown off a railing. And then you have a situation where you have a terrorist elected into office, and you guys know who I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden they're going to loot and burn Minneapolis again because the false martyr is being exposed for what he was. He was just a drug addict that I think he pointed a gun. Did he shoot a woman that was pregnant? I don't remember all the details because I tried to turn that shit off. But this guy was nothing but bad news, and they celebrate this guy with, like, I don't know, was it 5 funerals or something? It's the most insane time that we ever live in. And you got to ask yourself, who the hell is making these people out to be like this guy was like, you would think he was Martin Luther King, It's the most insane thing ever, and it's so distorted and evil, and we need to start calling it out. So how does this relate to what's happening now? Well, right now we have this massive crisis on the border, and it's a big issue, folks. And, I made somebody made a comment to me today, and I told them I would address it in this video. But they said, hey, Bobby, they said, let me see here, because I want to talk about this because, I do take criticism and I do respond to criticism, and I can appreciate that. And he goes, don't go down the path Trump did with blanket statements about illegal immigrants. There are bad illegal immigrants and lazy ones, but many contribute. Let's be smart about this, not throw blanket attacks, okay? And then he basically said, how we fill out the labor voids in agricultural, et cetera. I'm just kind of cutting to the, to the key points. He says, respectfully, a former illegal and proud American, okay? And I said, I will address it. And he said, gracias, Bobby, blessings upon your work. P.S. I came to the U.S. as a result of amnesty. Both my parents were farm workers here. My dad is now retired and a deacon. Okay. I came illegally, but my parents instilled a love for education, among other things. He ended up in law school, practiced immigration law, but my focus is raise my children. Okay. The Republican Party is what keeps me with the Republican Party. Latinos are very conservative. We need to find a way to contribute and engage. Okay. So his name, I don't have his name, but what I would say is I hope he's watching. And this is what I'm going to say. When I make comments about illegals, a couple things. Number one, if your parents were migrant workers that came in, there's a different type of status. Like they probably had a temporary visa and then they overstayed their visa. Okay, but they followed some kind of process to come here, and they came here as a family. So I would say that folks that are coming in here because we're short workers and they follow the rules, and they're probably not being smuggled in by people that are really bad elements of society and humanity. I should distinguish. I don't view those folks as illegal. They're breaking the law. They're overstaying their visa. There's that type of classification, but this is happening. This has been happening for as far back as the eye can see. Okay, so maybe I need to come up with a different term for it, because there's those folks that we need to figure out that got here. They overstayed their visa, but they're doing something that's productive. And the American people need to decide as a society, all of us who are here, what is fair. How long should you stay? If or do you have to be immediately go back if you're overstaying? You're welcome. I don't have the answer to that, but when I say illegal on the border right now and these illegals that are coming in, these are not families, folks. Okay, these are not. Matt, I agree. Illegal means illegal, but there's different forms of illegal. If you let me explain, Matt. If you followed a law to get in somewhere, and then you didn't fully understand the rules after you got there that you had to leave, it's kind of like it's a different situation. It's almost like I don't want to say they're being bait and switched, but if you agree to come in and someone told you can come in and you follow the rules and you don't really speak the language and you come into this country, and then all of a sudden you're forming and building a life and you didn't understand the rules, we have to have a little more sympathy for that, because maybe the idea should be, look, Matt, don't let them, make sure they know up front, or there has to be something that's done on the front end. But once they've kind of come in the legal approach, the legal way, and they're here, maybe we need to redo our policy and rethink that a little better, because I got to tell you, I think that the language barrier and those types of things, it can have a huge impact as to their perception that they're doing anything wrong, especially if they were working and contributing, like in the case of this gentleman's parents. Okay, so I get it. It's almost like it would have been better if there was a shortage of workers. You said, look, we have to figure out how to solve it without letting in people to do that. Okay, so we can go into this a little more detail, but I want to go back to this border crisis. When I'm talking about the illegals in this border crisis that's happening like right now on the U.S. border, these are not families, folks. These are not like, in this case with this gentleman's mom and dad came here as migrant workers farming, probably in California, because there's a lot of migrant workers. I think there's like 1 to 2 million a year come in and they pick crops and so forth, and so forth. That those jobs were not being filled. And if we don't have some of those jobs filled, we need to do something to have a pipeline of people that want to come in and do that work, or we need to come up with technology to do that work for us, which is what they've been working on. Actually, they have machines now that cost like $20,000 that can pick strawberries and not smash strawberries. So the technology is changing, that the need for migration will drop. That's just the reality, folks. Every single immigrant group in the country that used to do that work will be impacted by technology. But now, in terms of these people coming to the border, like right now, there's this perception that they're all Mexicans, and because it's the Mexican border. And the reality is, from what I'm hearing, and a lot of this stuff is being suppressed, but I do talk to a decent slug of people now. Because of people reaching out to me and so forth, and that a lot of these people on the border are from Honduras, they're from Guatemala, they're from Central America. And in some of these spots that they're from, and I'm going to pull something up here while I'm talking here. These are horrific spots, in terms of there's a tremendous amount of violence in these areas. And my concern and why I'm so critical of illegals in this case, and what I'm really focused on, and maybe I do need to do a better job of specifying why I get so angry about the illegals right now, is these illegals that are coming in with no families. These are children that were sold into slavery likely by their parents, okay? By their parents, folks, that they're being sold into slavery by their parents, and they're being weaponized. So my problem with this is that here we are, we have all these children at the border, coming in waves of 1,000 to 2,000 children. 80 to 90% of them are boys. They're not girls, folks. It's one thing if it was split, like 50% of the kids are boys, 50% of the kids are girls. There's parents sprinkled in. No, this is like an invading army. These kids are 13 to 17 years old, and they're basically have been sold by their parents possibly to criminal elements in our society, and they want to come in and they want to get food and they want to get shelter, and then they're going to be told what they're supposed to do when they get here. And once they get into the system and they breach our border, and there's 1,000 or 2,000 in Pennsylvania, there's 2,000 sprinkled into Illinois, 2,000 into Arizona. You have a de facto guerrilla war. You have a guerrilla military apparatus that's being imported onto U.S. soil. That's what I'm talking about. When I'm sitting there talking about these illegals, I'm talking about the fact that it's very hard, right? Because somebody like me, they're like, Bobby, you can't talk about the kids like that. Bobby, my wife even tells me, Bobby, you're basically you're attacking children. You know how that's going to make you seem. I said, look, guys, I'm not trying to attack the kids. I understand. I have sympathy for these kids, but here's the reality. If they've been raped along the way by these people, which is there's a lot of stories about that. They're being sold off by their parents. They're probably being controlled through food, just basic stuff, folks. They're literally being treated like animals by these cartels, possibly. I don't know if it's the cartels. I don't know if it's some other international syndicates. I don't know who's doing it. All I could tell you is it's happening. And so when I sit there and I look at this country of 300 million people, and I hear about tens of thousands of these children being brought in, and you got these lunatic lefties like, hey, let's just let them in. This is okay. Let's let these people come into our country. It's a serious issue, because you start letting in all these kids and they're not Americans and they have no families here. So think about this for a second. These children don't have a social network here. They don't have aunts and uncles and families that they're going to go to. So if you bring in a bunch of children from any country, it doesn't matter where it's from. This happens to be, this is coming from South America or Central America. It could be coming in from, theoretically, these kids could be coming from China, from Europe, from Middle East. They can come from Africa. If you send a bunch of kids with no parents and no family and no relatives here, and then you just throw them into the U.S., what the hell do you think is going to happen? Where are these kids going to go? They're going to turn to somebody to take care of them and feed them. And if the government, and this is my point, who's watching over them when they're fed? Our social services, with that whole thing, with how wonderful of a job they do with childcare and foster care in this country. That's who's going to take this over? Are you serious? So my point is, when you look here, I'm going to put this up here. So, I think this is Pelosi's, one of their largest donors. I think I heard about Pelosi, parasitic Pelosi. I heard that one of her largest donors was this group. I don't know if it's true, folks. I'm just being a smartass right now. But Mara Salvatrucha known as MS-13, International Crime Gang, that originated in California, LA, in the 70s and 80s. Okay, protect Salvadoran immigrants. Okay, so then basically, this is where a lot of these kids are coming from. So now there's 50 to 70,000 of them worldwide. There's 8 to 10,000 in the U.S. right now, and they're involved in extortion, kidnapping, robbery, immigration, racketeering, human trafficking, drug trafficking. And here are some of the allies that they have right here. You can see that for yourself. And, you kind of go down here, okay, in 2008, the gang's U.S. membership of up to 10,000 account for less than 1% of the 1.4 million gang members. Okay, yeah, that's what the lunatic left likes to say. Look, it's only 1%. Why don't we grow them to 5%? But here's the difference, folks. This is the difference between what's happening with this group and this gang versus other gangs. Here you go. Some people say it's 30 to 50,000 members. The difference between this gang and other gangs is these folks are a hell of a lot more ruthless. That's the difference. These are the ones you kind of hear some of these stories about, where they literally burn kids alive in initiations. They'll go and they'll have like 5 or 6 of them. They'll go randomly kill kids that just randomly. They'll just go take a kid out of a car, pull them over, torture them, burn them. And this isn't the movies, folks. This is like happening on U.S. soil. And when you hear about these stories, and this is with suppression taking place, where we're being lied to and they're withholding the information of what's really happening on U.S. soil. And, it's extremely concerning. And so my attitude, I don't have a complicated solution. Mine's super simple. Okay. This is a war. This is a war that's been declared on the United States by somebody. Somebody is shipping these children up that are 13 to 17. They have no families. They're all young men, and they're at an age where they can be militarized, and they have no social network here to take care of them. So this is a massive threat to our sovereignty as a nation. And if you think Minneapolis is a shit show and that's a problem, you unleash tens of thousands of these type of kids into this country, into our major cities or into our suburbs. What the hell do you think is going to happen? Okay. And, they're going to try to take away our guns, saying that these people are shooting up the place. And, and they're going to be like, this is why we need to restrict guns. And it's going to be like, no, we're not going to restrict guns because you guys aren't doing your damn job. And we need to be able to protect ourselves from these people that you're letting into this country. So my attitude is, we have a military for a reason. And the military is it was sworn to uphold and defend the United States from all threats, foreign and domestic. The people that are supporting this, those are the domestic threats. The people that are coming in this way, those are the foreign threats. It's not a complicated situation. We have military transport planes. We get those kids right on the plane and we fly them back. And anybody who's involved in this process, you prosecute them under RICO. You take away all their assets and you jail them and you treat them like the traitors that they are. That's what we need to start doing. And in terms of countries that allow them to pass through with safe haven, hit them economically. This is a different kind of war. Hey, Mexico, you want to let 10,000 kids walk through your country on the way to the United States? You know what? No problem. Every 100 kids that try to come up here, we're going to shut down our border with you for a week. Okay? Problem solved. 2,000 kids, 20 weeks. We just keep it real simple. Let the Mexicans know. You guys, if you're letting your border with all these children from these countries that are this damaging to the sovereignty or the security of the United States, you're going to pay an economic price. Get your shit together. secure your southern border, stop making sure that people are getting bribed that allow these kids through, and then make their way up to the United States. And so, that's that, folks. And anyways, what a crazy day. This has been weighing on me all night, folks. The past couple of days, I'm sitting there reading up on this. I'm seeing that this is happening, and there's nobody sounding the alarm. And, I don't know what the alternative is. Somebody's got to say something, and we got to do something about it. And we need to mobilize, and we need to start doing something to remove these politicians. So maybe we need to figure out how to start impeaching these politicians as soon as possible, because this is just ridiculous. I don't know if you impeach them, you jail them. NSA for like, where the hell are you? Start releasing the data. Show it to the American people. You should be controlled by the American people, not the politicians. If you know our elected officials are committing crimes, you owe us. Release the damn documents and let us look at them. And the NSA has all this information. It has the damn phone calls. It has all the emails. It has everything. As far as I'm concerned, NSA, please start releasing this stuff. You should just do drops. Drop it nationwide with all the press, like not just the corrupt mainstream media press, all the alternative data sources, and just sign it too. You don't even have to put somebody's name on it. Just say, sincerely, NSA. Boom, here's the data, folks. That's what we should be doing. And then, you know what? NSA, have the Space Force get your back with the satellites. So make sure that, that the Space Force is making sure that NSA employees are staying safe for releasing all this information to the American people, and literally expose every last one of these scumbags that has sold us out, taking bribes, and doing all this stuff to undermine this country. So anyways, that's it. I got to go for now. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll be back on around 4 o'clock. And so take care, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.